Good morning, Garland Nixon and Scott Ritter here. It's Wednesday morning for our Rockfin exclusive premium show. Of course, we're going to start off here. Plenty to talk about today from Davos to Kiev. Let's talk. Good morning. And just so everybody knows, I'll give you a 30-second version of this. This is my weekly Rockfin premium show. Rockfin is a great platform. There's no advertisements, and it's free. Everybody can join and enjoy it. Like YouTube, only better. Rockfin creators do one premium show per week. This is my one premium show per week, but I always start off on all of my platforms so everybody can kind of get a gist of what's going on. If you want to be a premium member on Rockfin, you can join at no charge, nothing, doesn't cost anything. See all of my stuff except my one premium show. To see that in full, you've got to be a member. It's $14.99 a month, but if you join for a year, they give you 2 months free, so it really comes out to $9.99 a month. So let's get going. Enough of this. Scott Ritter, let's start with Davos. What the heck's going on with these crazies at Davos?
Well, it's called the World Economic Forum for a reason, and what we're seeing is a gathering of the Western political and economic elite. And they are promulgating policy concepts and options that are designed to better the economic position of the political and economic elite, not those who they ostensibly represent. It's amazing to continue to watch, senior politicians, European Union, European Commission officials, basically plant their bayonet on the hill of, we've got to win this conflict against Russia. We're going to double down on providing, weapons and financial support, trying to couch the Ukrainian-Russian conflict as some sort of existential crisis for the West, when it's not. Literally, the West could get out of this anytime at once. It's committing economic suicide. I believe many of these politicians are committing political suicide. And yet they continue to say that Russia must be driven to its knees. I don't know if they've taken a look at what's been going on lately. Vis-a-vis the European economy and the Russian economy. Inflation is rampant in Europe. Russia's got it under control. European GDP is falling. Russia fell by 2%. Europe's paying exorbitant, energy prices. Russia made 28% more money off of their energy last year. Remember, last year, the year of sanctions, Russia's making money, not losing money. Right now, the European Union and other European countries are struggling to figure out how they're going to, in this time of economic hardship, revamp their respective defense industries to be able to do some amazing things like convert 4 battalion-sized battle groups into brigade-sized battle groups. I mean, that's a big deal. 4 battalions are going to be turned into brigades, and yet Europe is struggling to figure out, how are we going to do that? We have to ramp up our defense spending. We have to do this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin expanded the Russian military to 1.5 million and just basically effortlessly streamed into the creation of new military districts, new military groupings in Karelia opposite Finland will be an army-sized grouping, new mechanized divisions, new marine divisions, new artillery divisions. And all this will be done not through conscription, but through increasing the size of the contract force, the professional force, the volunteer force. Russian defense industry is fully mobilized to support this expansion and the ongoing special military operation without any meaningful disruption of civilian industrial capacity and the civilian economy. Russia's doing everything right. Europe's doing everything wrong, and yet somehow Europe and the participants at this forum think that Ukraine has a chance to win. It's self-delusional. I mean, I've said this before. It's a little flippant, but I'll say it again. It's like the captain of the Titanic calling the crew together after hitting the iceberg and saying, the iceberg's irrelevant. Don't worry about the iceberg. Full speed ahead. No, dude, the iceberg punched a hole in your ship and you're sinking. There's nothing you can do to stop your ship from going down. That's Europe right now. They're on the Titanic. They're sinking. Russia's the iceberg, and it just doesn't care.
Well, the great thing about the West now is all they have to do is tell their soldiers, this is a platoon, but you can identify as a brigade or you can identify as a division, and they just change what they identify as in the West. And there you go. You got your brigade, you got your division.
The squad, what is it? The squad pronouns or the military pronouns? I'm a squad division.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And you just put it underneath like your name on a Zoom meeting. They'll have, it'll all be done in Zoom meetings and boom, there you go. Divisions, brigades, all ready to go take on the Ruskies.
And put a Ukrainian flag there too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Poland. Before we get to the battlefield, Poland. So what we are hearing now is Poland is they're going to go from 150,000 army to a 300,000 man, woman, whatever army. A couple of things to throw at you real quick. And you know this. When you say you got 300,000 people in your army or 150, that doesn't mean you got 150,000 people that can pick up a rifle and charge at the enemy. You got all this support stuff and supply stuff and all that. You got 150,000 people. You might have half that, depending on, and in some of these modern, technocratic stuff, you might have 25% of it. But the question is, what's that all about? Is the U.S. Machine ready to say, look, we're running out of Ukrainians in the Russian meat grinder, time to throw some Poles in? What's all that about, Scott Ritter?
Well, I think basically there's a couple things going on. One, the United States isn't going to secure the eastern flank of NATO by itself. I think the United States has made it clear that while it's willing to forward deploy a corps size headquarters, they're willing to permanently station a brigade or two, maybe another brigade's worth of equipment in Poland. The United States isn't going to deploy 200,000 troops to be solely responsible for security of NATO's eastern flank. That Poland will have to step up. And I think part of this is Poland saying, okay, we're stepping up. We're creating a new armored division, maybe another one, et cetera. So I think that this is part and parcel of what's going on. I also think that Poland, look, they're, politicians, and we know this, when their lips are moving, they're lying. And Polish politicians' lips are moving an awful lot lately about Ukraine. And they're in the business of trying to, basically they're used car salesmen trying to sell a lemon as if it's a brand new Lamborghini. The fact is they know that Ukraine is a lemon. They know the engine won't start, won't turn over. They know all because they're intimately familiar with it. And there is a concern now on the part of the Poles that, NATO having created this proxy conflict and, and using Ukraine as an expendable resource. I mean, the Ukrainian, I always laugh, I was put on that Center for Countering Disinformation blacklist called a Russian propagandist and information terrorist and things like that. And when they initially listed my three major offenses, the number one offense was that I dared say that the Ukrainian-Russian conflict is a NATO proxy conflict with Russia. They said, my God, he called it a proxy conflict. Hey, the Ukrainian Minister of Defense just came out last week and said, yeah, it's a proxy war between NATO and Russia, and we're the proxy. We're the ones that are dying. Therefore, you must give us equipment. So I'm looking forward to his name being put on next to mine on this list because we're guilty of the same thing.
I understand the guy Arestovich that just resigned.
Yeah,
I understand his name's on the Mirovets list now.
List. I'm looking forward to him too. I mean, maybe he and I can call each other up and come up with survival strategies, joint survival strategies. I think he's easier to reach than I am. So, but the fact is, this is a proxy conflict. Poland knows this, and Poland also understands the disposable nature of Ukraine. That the West doesn't care about Ukraine, not at all, not one iota. I mean, if we did, we wouldn't allow this to happen. Nobody would allow this to happen to a friend. But we don't like the Ukrainians. We have no respect for the Ukrainians. We're simply using the Ukrainians as fodder for a broader strategy of weakening Russia. And that strategy has failed. Russia's stronger now. I mean, that's the irony of this.
But I'll add this. If two people get in a fight, the guy that wins, people are going to be less likely to want to fight him. So if you get in a war and you win a war, you're at home, the people all cheer the soldiers, they cheer the government. Yay, you won a war, you're winning a war. They cheer you, the people around the world cheer and say, hey, you stood up to the big bully. If and when Russia wins this, they win. You know what I mean? I mean, you have empowered Russia in a way that they could never have empowered themselves.
Well, that's the reality. But there's also this. There is such a thing as a Pyrrhic victory,
Yeah.
and I think the goal right now is to compel Russia to make so many sacrifices to achieve a victory in Ukraine that it ends up undermining its economy. And therefore creates political unrest in Russia that threatens Putin, resentment in the military. I just read. I mean, it's amazing. A Rand writer, with an impressive resume, was joined by a former U.S. ambassador, and they just published something that talks about, how Russia is losing this conflict. And one of the scenarios they came up with is that the Russian military today is the equivalent of the Russian Imperial Army back in 1916, bitter, angry, frustrated with Putin, who hides in his palace like the Tsar hid in his palace, and that there's the opportunity for a 1917-like revolution where the army turns on the government. And again, I mean, I've made this joke before. I'll make it again. I'm not a marijuana user, but man, let me have some of what you're smoking, because that is one heck of a hallucination you're having there. If you actually think the Russian military is frustrated with Putin to the extent they're going to rise up and turn on him. They've been reading too many Strelkov blogs. There's a handful of these bloggers out there, Zrada, 22, and Strelkov, and some others who are just flat out Putin haters. They hate Putin, and they're so bitter and resentful. That Russia's succeeding because they actually hate Russia. They claim not to. They claim to be pro-Russian, but they hate Russia. They hate Putin. They resent the fact that Russia's actually winning right now. And, and so they come up with all these scenarios about how there's deep resentment in the ranks, that the generals are fat fools, da, 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 da. I could have gone to Iraq or Afghanistan and interviewed every Lance Corporal I found in the Marine Corps, and carefully edit this. And I would get guys who were my lieutenant's incompetent. The colonel doesn't know what the hell is he doing. The general's just up there making stuff up. He doesn't realize what's really going on here on the ground. Only I know the truth. Lance Corporal Schmuckatelli, I know the truth. That's it. I know what Biden's thinking in the White House. I know what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is, because he doesn't know any of that. He's just a Lance Corporal who lives in a Lance Corporal world, which is important. It's the building block of the Marine Corps, but you know nothing. You have no clue what the logistic support requirement of your platoon is. And if we put you in charge of that and said, Lance Corporal, you're the platoon commander, your platoon would fall apart instantaneously because you don't know how to manage a platoon, let alone a company, a battalion, a regiment, a brigade, a division, an army, the whole world. And yet all these wannabe leaders, Strelkov and Zrada 22, they're up there thinking that they know best. They know nothing. But the problem is they put this out on a blog, and then you have people like the Rand people who are desperately looking for data to, validate their own anti-Russian prejudice. And so they pick up on this stuff and they come up with theories like the Russian army is going to rebel against Putin. I mean, again, some of that, man, because it's good if you believe that.
let me ask you this. I think that part of the strategy here, maybe I'm wrong, all that really powerful hammer that continues to be growing in Belarus. Part of that is a deterrent. Everybody says maybe it's a deterrent to NATO, but I think it also is a reminder to Poland. If you decide you're going to go into eastern Ukraine, Lukashenko says, I can't have your troops on my border like this. If you decide to go into Ukraine, Western Ukraine, you are taking a chance of getting your army destroyed. Not just getting punched in the face. If you go in there, that's a hell of a risk, and your guys, none of them might not come out. I think that's part of the Belarus thing, isn't it?
It's not taking a chance, and it's not none of them might come out. It's any Pole who enters Ukraine under the pretext of taking Ukraine is going to die or become a prisoner. End of story. Um, and here's the other thing. Unlike Russia, which is seeking a professional force, I think the Poles are seeking to expand their army through conscription. And I'll just tell you right off the bat, a conscription army will never stand toe to toe with a regular army. Just isn't going to happen. Conscript can't learn the complexities of modern warfare in the limited time. I don't know, 2-year conscription, 1-year conscription. I have to go and familiarize myself with Polish conscription law. But the fact is, these guys aren't professional. Conscript soldiers are not professional soldiers, and they don't know how to fight. It takes. I've discussed it with other people before. I take your basic Marine recruit, fit young man, put him through 13 weeks of basic training. That just basically allows him to cut his hair short, wear the uniform, and say, "I'm a Marine." But you're not a combat Marine yet. Now you have to go to your advanced individual training, depending on your MOS. But even then, when you finish with that, that just means that you have the basic skill set necessary to function at the most rudimentary level. Now I take you and I send you to a unit, but it's not a unit of conscripts. That's the problem. See, a conscript force, when you fall in, is a unit of conscripts. Nobody knows what they're doing. I'm sending you to a seasoned Marine Corps battalion that's just coming off of a 6-month deployment overseas doing real world stuff, most likely combat related. And the vast majority of those Marines are going to stay in that unit for the next tour. So you're falling in, and I'm going to assign you to a fire team where you're the rookie, everybody else is experienced, part of a squad where everybody's experienced, part of a platoon, everybody's experienced. There might be some rotation, but generally speaking, that battalion is a cohesive unit. So it's not going to fail because a new Marine doesn't know how to do his job. They're going to teach that Marine. But a unit that's built full of conscripts, a failure of one is a failure of all. They will all collapse. They will all fail. A conscript force cannot survive in a modern, large-scale combat situation like we see in Europe. And they show you how that's happening. Look at the territorial defense units of Ukraine. They are conscript units exclusively, and they are being slaughtered like lambs. It's ugly, it's sad, it's tragic, but every single one of the prisoners are like, we don't know what we're doing. They gave us an AK-47, they gave us some grenades, some ammunition, they threw us on the front lines. We don't know who's to our left, our right. We don't know who's commanding us. Suddenly, here come the Russians. Damn, everybody's dead, and I'm surrendering. And that's the reality of it. Territorial defense units, you don't ever hear of them, holding the position and advancing. The territorial defense unit received the attack of the Wagner, forces, repelled them, and is launching a cohesive counterattack to reclaim the territory. Conscripts don't do that. They just don't do it. They're not programmed to do this sort of thing. So, what is Poland building? A professional military or a bunch of conscripts who are little more than lambs who will be led to the slaughter that will be Western Ukraine if Poland seeks to intervene?
Well, next we're getting ready to head over to Rockfin, but we do need to talk about Soledar, Bakhmut, the battlefield, what's going on there, and something else I want to ask you about, and I know you're familiar with it. This recent, apparently all of the war games that they did with Taiwan and China, the U.S. would not fare quite well, so they decided to do a new one where they at least, it's like everyone, okay, we didn't do well. Let's create a new scenario. And in this one, we'll at least break even. It won't be pretty, but we'll break even. And even then they left out something. And that is, okay, yeah, But what if Russia and China really are a military alliance? And you say, okay, we're going toe to toe with China, and Russia and China have decided in a back room, if the US empire comes after one of us wide open, neither of us can afford to lose. We got to fight them. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm saying that's the scenario. Everything I've read about that war game, nowhere does it involve hypersonic missiles coming from Russian submarines and Kinzhals and things of that nature. So we need to talk about all of that stuff. But so as of now, as I said to everyone, just let you know, we're going to Rockfin. It is my Rockfin Premium. Please join Rockfin. It costs absolutely nothing. It's free. Rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Everybody, please join my Rockfin channel. You can get everything on there, absolutely no cost. No, there's no advertisements on Rockfin. However, all Rockfin creators, we do one show per week. And that helps keep Rockfin going since they don't charge anything and they don't have any advertisements to make money off of. One show per week we do, which is our premium show. This is mine. And that is for our premium viewers. It is $14.99 per month. However, if you join for a year, it's only $9.99 a month because they give you a couple months free. We're going over to Rockfin. Thanks a lot, everybody. Follow me, do the likes and all that kind of stuff. I certainly appreciate it. And this is my weekly show, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Thank you. All right. So first.